This video is brought to you by Squarespace. The end of fame and success can hit people in many different ways. Some people desperately hold on, some accept it, and others self-implode altogether. The story of mountain bike superstar Missy Giovee is one of the latter.
She was charged with conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute over 100 kilograms of marijuana.
Today we're going to look at the life of Missy Giovee and find out how everything went so downhill. From a young age, Missy was just different. She grew up in the concrete jungle of Manhattan, New York. And she was kind of the last person you'd expect to be some hippie vagabond obsessed with nature and the mountains.
My whole dad's side of the family was from the city. I was infatuated with mountains and infatuated.
However, at just age 14, she stood up to her parents and said, I'm gonna go move to my grandparents in Vermont. Missy loved Vermont. It was perfect for her. She was in nature, she learnt to ski. But you see, one day her friend convinced her to compete in a bike race. She did it, and she absolutely loved it. From here, Missy's life would take a dramatic turn.
So I hitchhiked out to Durango, Colorado.
I was hitchhiking, and these mountain bikers that were going to the World Championships picked me up, and then I got there.
Didn't know anybody there, didn't know a single person there, didn't know anybody. So I just took my tent and just went camping and just camped there.
It would be at this event when Missy would discover the entire world of mountain biking, and she would meet one person in particular, a man by the name of John Parker, who was the owner of a company called Yeti Bikes.
He was kind enough to check me out while I was there and thought maybe I had some potential.
After witnessing Missy ride her bike, he realized she was different. She rode with this intensity that people hadn't seen from a female rider before. She would approach every section with this all or nothing attitude.
It's very liberating too to put all yourself into something and not have regard sometimes for your own body, putting it all on black, as we say.
And so John decided to sign her to Yeti Bikes, and she would compete in more and more races. Being known as this crazy rider who would frequently cross the finishing line with flat tires, bare wheel rims, broken bones, bloody, Missy would regularly take slams on her bike and just get up and then keep going. And so from this point, Missy went from being this unknown to now riding with the top riders in mountain biking.
In the women's final, Missy, the Missile Giovee, beats Cindy Whitehead for an all-new women's course record.
But you see, it would be off of the bike where Missy would really get her name.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that adrenaline rush. I mean, you feel alive.
Yes, I see. I'm alive. I see it.
I think Missy's personality could be described as an acquired taste. Like, to say the least. Missy is very high energy. She would constantly get herself in trouble or annoy people.
You've been suspended from competition a number of times. Why?
Behavioral problems.
And she was just this chaotic individual. She would constantly need cash, so she would head to the pawn shop and sell her bike. And then when she had enough money, she'd buy it back. And this was kind of a constant cycle. When it came to a mountain biking team, Missy was kind of like the stray dog of the group. When all the other riders would choose to sleep in the condo, she would sleep either on a balcony or just in a tent that she'd pitched up somewhere.
I was on the porch. It was good like that. I enjoyed it like that. I like the freedom of that. I didn't want to have a key. That was too tame for me.
But look, just personality aside, no one could deny Missy's star power.
Missy Giovee!
To the Missile Giovee.
Missy's face would be plastered all over the media. She was literally known for wearing a dried piranha around her neck. There was nothing normal about Missy Giovee.
You sprinkle, what do? You carry around the ashes of your dead dog?
It's protection.
In her career, she won 14 Norba downhill titles and 11 World Cups. 3 of those Norbas she won overall, and 2 of the World Cups she also won overall. She also has a World Championship title from 1994, as well signing a $1 million a year contract with her bike sponsor.
This girl was a rock star all over the world.
Life was going pretty well. For now. You see, around the turn of the century, the mountain bike industry started to kind of falter.
Advertisers and everything couldn't get enough of mountain biking, and then all of a sudden, blink, not fashionable anymore.
Major sponsors pulled out and the industry was struggling. And just as all of this was happening, disaster would strike for Missy. 2001, Vail, Colorado at the World Championships. Missy was riding her bike and she would suffer the worst crash of her career, leaving her with a brain hemorrhage. This was a severe injury, but Missy kept plodding along until 2003, where she would have to retire from the world of mountain bike. And like, what would you do in this situation? You've just spent 30 years of your life dedicated to riding a bike. You dropped out of college, you didn't learn any other skills, and now you can't ride anymore. So Missy Giovee quietly fades away from the world of mountain biking. Before we go any further, I want to give a massive shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring. Squarespace is hands down the best platform for building and developing your own website. And regardless of what you do, you could be some cool hip streetwear brand, or maybe you're a super serious accountant. On Squarespace, you can build a website that will perfectly fit your product and what you do and tailor it to your audience. Through tons and tons of templates that are fully customizable, you'll have a professional, polished website in no time. I'm currently using Squarespace at the moment for a top secret project, and I can tell you I absolutely love using it. On top of that, there's tons of built-in features. You've got email marketing, appointment scheduling, and e-commerce. So be sure to head over to squarespace.com/Jimmy the Giant, and to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain, use the code Jimmy the Giant. Anyway, back to the video. Many years would pass and people would wonder what happened to Missy. It had now been about 5 years since she was riding professionally, and she was getting a bit desperate for cash. And in 2008, she would make a decision to start selling weed. And like, if I've given you any impression of what Missy's character was like, she wasn't going to be the type to sell small bags of weed to some friends.
The same way that she was on the bike as she was in life. Go big or, you know, you don't go.
And so very quickly, Missy's life completely changes. She joins this underground drug network, positioning herself as a vital role in this weed operation.
This organization was so profitable, and it was so well organized.
So how it worked was that the weed was being grown in California where it was legal, but then the distribution was being done in New York City where it was not legal. California to New York is a 44-hour drive. The journey to move the product from California to New York City was very, very risky.
And you need someone who's bold enough to take the risk to transport it across the country.
So who else was gonna do it other than Missy Giovee?
I obviously am like good on dirt bikes and mountain biking and stuff like that. I'm capable of operating under high stress situations.
And so Missy throws herself in the deep end, utilizing her skills of riding bikes, dirt bikes, and trucks. This job, I suppose you could say, would take her all over into very dangerous situations.
I was meeting people up in like Canada, you know, by myself with like 100 pounds of weed on my back and dirt biking like hours out of the woods with patrols, like chasing and whatnot.
At times having to spend an entire night buried under leaves and dirt to avoid being caught. But you see, it was in these high pressure, high adrenaline moments where Missy thrives. Missy was living a double life. She was keeping all of this secret. She had a code name, she would change how she looked. Friends, her family, and the mountain biking world had no idea she was doing any of this. But you see, for Missy, she was loving it, making large sums of money and living this high adrenaline, secretive life. However, it could only last for so long. In 2009, police in New York received a call from the DEA in Illinois.
And there had been a traffic stop on a Ford F-150 pickup truck with a box trailer that was carrying 288 pounds of marijuana,
which police had discovered was intended for Missy Giovee to pick up and deliver to New York. However, the feds had no idea how big this operation was. So the police rigged the vehicle with a GPS tracker, and they scattered the area with surveillance units hidden away. And so Missy headed to the truck on a day that was just like any other. She gets in the vehicle and she drives it to an area called Albany, just outside of New York.
We identify the driver quickly as Eric Canori.
Eric arrives and the pair speak for a short while. Then Eric leads the two to his home in the nearby town of Wilton. The two arrive and Missy goes to the back of the trailer to unload their bikes. However, it would be at this moment when Missy noticed something wasn't right. She could see this device strapped to the back wall of the trailer, and so she goes closer to inspect. And it would be at that moment when she instantly realized they were screwed. Missy and Eric take off in two separate vehicles and just try and get as far away as possible. Driving as fast as she can, Missy arrives at a marina. She pulls over her vehicle, gets out, and sees that there's a kayak.
Seriously thought for a minute, okay, I'll put the dirt bike in a kayak and then I'll kayak down river and then I'll just get out in the middle of the woods somewhere.
But then Missy has a moment of realization. She realizes it's probably not a good idea. And so she goes and sits down and
rolled a really big fat joint and smoked it because I knew I was going to be arrested. They were coming for me.
Shortly after, 20 or so police officers surround her wearing tactical vests, shouting at her to put her hands in the air. She claims that she didn't have any knowledge of the truck or the GPS or the 288 pounds of weed, which the police valued approximately at $1.18 million. So obviously the police didn't believe her. They took Missy and Eric into custody, where they're held until the police police got a search warrant for their residence.
Inside, we found more marijuana that was already there and $1.473 million in cash.
The jig was well and truly up. There was no way Missy was gonna get out of this situation. She had rode as close to the edge as she could and she crashed. Now she was left to wait and find out her sentence. Missy is charged for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute over 100 kilograms of weed, carrying a potential sentence of 40 years. Just to think how her life took such an extreme turn so quickly. Just 10 years prior, she was this known, loved celebrity of mountain biking. And there she sat in a jail cell awaiting to hear her fate. And so as time passed, her and her accomplices weighed up their options, which were very few. And they decided it was wise for them to seek a plea deal.
Everybody in this case pled. Nobody went to trial. Part of the plea agreement, Eric Canori was going to forfeit more proceeds.
And so he took the police to his stepfather's property, where the boy digs up some dirt and exposes 44 1-kilogram gold bars with an estimated value of $2.2 million. By the end of it all, the total seizure amounted to $13 million.
This operation was huge. Canori was really a mastermind.
And now it was time to find out what the judge was going to stick on them. In 2011, Missy Giovee receives her sentence, which would end up being time served plus 6 months of house arrest and 5 years of federal probation restricting her to a 35-mile radius of Virginia. Truthfully speaking, considering the fact that they could have got 40 years, this was pretty light. It was kind of a slap on the wrist compared to what they could have faced. However, Eric Canori did face 30 months in prison, which isn't bad for $13 million worth of weed. So you may wonder what came of Missy Giovee's life after this. Her life actually started to take some form of structure. She went and got married, and she actually returned to the world of mountain biking in August of 2015 in a World Cup event in New York. She wasn't really competing to win, she was mainly there to raise awareness because her wife had breast cancer. But it would be at this event where she would be reunited with the man who made her career in the first place, John Parker of Yeti Bikes. It seemed as though the mountain biking world embraced her return to the sport. Despite the well-known fact that she went to prison and committed crimes, it wasn't like a sinister crime like she murdered someone. She was moving weed. Till this day, it seems as though Missy is still riding. The last video I could find of her was 3 years ago, where she was riding in January 2019. But it also appears that her wife very sadly passed away around the same sort of time. And from this point, there's been very little information about Missy's life, at least online. She doesn't seem to use social media, but from my digging, I did find one article which claimed that she was running a physical therapy clinic in Southern California. But whether this is true or not, I wasn't able to confirm. To me, the saddest part of this story is seeing the end of an athlete's career. An athlete who didn't really have a backup plan. It's this unfortunate paradox that in order for people to become exceptionally good at something, particularly a sport, they often have to blinker themselves off from other things in life and solely focus on one thing, being the sport. But what happens when that sport goes away? Whether they suffer a bad injury or just lose interest. The lesson I've taken from Missy's life is to always have your eyes open, to look to see where you can progress your life to next. You have to be careful with getting so one-track minded on one thing. It can make you incredible at that thing, but sometimes it can lead you to a dead end where you might get desperate and take some very dumb risks.
Life can be really, really hard, you know, so every moment that you can make a better moment, make it a good moment, because you may not get anything else. Come hang out with me. We'll make the shitty times good.
We hope you're doing well, Missy. We love you. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and watch this video right here.